week 3 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I look to sell and trade this week. The first guy, Grichuk of the Colorado Rockies. So this Rocky team off to a great start here this season, where they overturned a lot of this roster over the last few seasons, letting out Nolan Arenado go in and trade, and letting Trevor Story walk in free agency. But they picked up some guys over the last month here before the season started. They got Grichuk in a trade. They signed Chris Bryant. And so far, they're off to the races. So right here on the season for Grichuk, 15 of 44, 2 home runs, 9 RBIs, a stolen base, 7 runs scored, a 341 average, and a 400 on base. So right here, he's off to an amazing start, is Randall Grichuk. But I don't think it's going to continue, even though I know he's in Coors Field, which is obviously a great hitter's park. But he's in a tough division as well with the Padres, Dodgers, and Giants, who have all pretty good pitching staffs in there. And last season, Grichuk, he struck out a ton. His batting average was .241 in that great Toronto Blue Jay lineup, and I just don't see him continuing, especially with this on base as well as 400, because he's more of a free swinger. So right now, the ball's getting put in play. He's hitting the baseball well, but I think he's going to go back to the ways, because it seems the same to me with the on-base to batting average ratio, just not too high. So he's a free swinger, and he's going to start getting himself in trouble, I think. So right now, I would sell him off while he is on a pretty good streak here. The last few games for Grichuk, April 20th versus Philly, 2 for 4 with 2 runs and a rib. April 23rd at Detroit and a doubleheader, 2 for 3. April 24th, 3 for 4, a homer, 2 RBIs. 2 runs scored. April 25th to Philly, 1 for 3 with a homer and an RBI. And April 26th to Philly, 0 for 4. So far here, great baseball he's playing, no doubt about it. But I think it's begin his luck with his new team here. And he's going to revert back to his old ways. But he's still a guy that definitely can help fantasy teams, but not at the level he's doing it right now. He still definitely can hit 25, 30 home runs, especially playing at Coors Field. But I think that batting average, when it's all said and done this season, you're probably going to get 250, 260 at most, with probably a 300 on base. So right now, while he's playing over his head, this is a perfect time, in my opinion, to sell him off this week. The next guy, Anthony Rizzo of the New York Yankees. So right here, the only reason he's on this list, because he's going off, is Rizzo, and coming off a 3 home run game yesterday. So right now, he's ranked number 1 in fantasy baseball. He's at peak value, and he's going to have a good season with that short porch in right field, no doubt about it. But if you could get a lot in return, a good pitcher and hitter, why wouldn't you do it this early in the season while he's tearing it up? Is Rizzo on the season, 8 home runs, 18 RBIs, 13 runs scored, a 283 batting average, and a 411 on base. So right now, it's like he turned back the clock over there to his MVP-type caliber days with the Cubs, with this Yankee team, especially over the week here, especially with the 3 home run game in last night's game. So Rizzo, he's on fire, no doubt about it. He's putting the ball in play, which he's always been good at. He's not really a high strikeout guy, especially for the nowadays standards of striking out a lot or not. But just like I mentioned, that porch in right field's been his friend in Yankee Stadium, and he's a sell-high candidate, but you got to get the right offer, obviously, for him, because I think he definitely could have a huge season, and it's not a fluke, is Rizzo, but coming off a 3 home run game, you could ask for a monster price, and some owners might pay it. So the last few games here for Rizzo, April 20th at Detroit, 2 for 4, a homer, 2 RBIs, a stolen base, 2 runs scored. April 21st at Detroit, 1 for 4. April 22nd versus Cleveland, 1 for 4. April 23rd versus Cleveland, 1 for 4. April 25th versus Cleveland, 2 for 5, a homer, 2 RBIs, 2 runs scored. And then last night, the monster game, April 26th versus Baltimore, 3 home runs, 6 RBIs, 3 for 4, and 4 runs scored. So he's on a tear. He's having a great season to start the year, leading the league in home runs. But if a guy offers you a monster trade, this is a perfect time to sell him high and get premium value for Rizzo. Right now, the next guy's Ty France of the Seattle Mariners. So Ty France, what a surprise here for him. Last season, he got off to the good start as well. Off pretty solid, 18 and 73 with a 291 average. But he struck out a lot as well last season. But so far this year, he's cutting down on his strikeouts. He's putting the ball in play more. And he's playing great baseball. On the season, 5 home runs, 21 RBIs, 11 runs scored, a 368 batting average, and a 443 on base. in the first 68 at-bats, so he's ranked number 2 is Ty France. And he's a guy I think you could get a lot for, especially with his versatility in fantasy baseball, qualifying at first, second, and third base. So he's playing great baseball, and he's a perfect sell-high candidate. No doubt about it, he could finish the season with great numbers. But he's playing way over his head, hitting over 360 right now. And he's a classic sell-high guy. The last few games here for France, April 20th versus Texas, 2 for 4 with a run and a rib. April 21st versus Texas, 3 for 4, a homer, 2 RBIs. April 22nd versus Kansas City, 0 for 4. April 23rd versus Kansas City, 5 for 6, a homer, 5 RBIs, 3 runs scored. April 24th versus Kansas City, 3 for 5, a homer, 2 RBIs, a run scored. And April 26th at Tampa, 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs. So right now, he's playing crazy baseball with 9 hits in his last 3 games as France. And obviously, that's not sustainable. No one's ever hit this great the whole season. So right now, while you could put him on your trade market and see what you could get, I think you could get a lot for him, especially like I mentioned, with the versatility of first, second, and third, because no way he finishes, in my opinion, in even the top 20 ranked of hitters for the remainder of the season as the season goes on this year. The next guy, Francisco Lindor of the New York Mets. So I know he's a double from last week on the sell-high list here. And Lindor, he's playing good baseball, but the problems with him is he's not hitting with runners in scoring position, and that's definitely going to be a problem as the season goes on. And last week, that average was up there in the 300s, and it's already dropped down to the 270. So on the season here for Lindor, 25th, 73, 4 home runs, 12 RBIs, 12 runs scored, 3 stolen bases, a 274 average, and a 365 on base. And no doubt about it, he's off to a better start than he was last season. But the Mets had some cupcake matchups earlier versus Arizona 6 times this season. And also, they versed a weak Washington national team the first 4 games of the season. So right now, as the teams are getting harder and the pitches are better that he's versing, the numbers have definitely dropped over the last week and a half here for Francisco Lindor. And like I mentioned, he's just not hitting with runners in scoring position, and the home runs he's hitting are all solo homers, and that's not going to bind well for him the remainder of the year. So on the last few games here for Lindor, April 21st versus the Giants, 3 for 5, a homer, an RBI, 2 runs scored. April 22nd at Arizona, 1 for 4 with a rib. April 23rd at Arizona, 1 for 3. April 24th at Arizona, 2 for 5 with an RBI. April 25th at St. Louis, 0 for 4. And April 26th at St. Louis, 0 for 5. So right now, like I mentioned, the home runs he's hitting are solo homers. His RBI count isn't really that good, even though I know it's early in the season. But last season, he did hit 20 home runs, but he only had 63 RBIs. And once again this season, I think Lindor is only going to drive in 70, 80 runs at most, probably 20, 25 home runs. And I could see that average 250s, 260s, because he's just not getting it done. Even though the positive sign here for Lindor is he's only struck out 12 times in 73 at-bats. So he is putting the ball in play. No doubt he's off to a better start than last season. But right now, while he got off to a hot start the first few weeks, now the numbers are dropping a little bit. I would sell him off and see what I can find on here. I would look to sell and trades Byron Buxton of the Minnesota Twins. Buxton, I know he's a great talent, but he's a guy that just can't stay healthy and on the field for a full season or even for 145 ball games. So this year, once again, off to a monster start, 6 home runs, 11 RBIs, 10 runs scored, a stolen base, a 317 average, and a 378 on base. But last season, he only played about 2 months, 2.5 months was Buxton. And once again this season, he's only had 41 at-bats as well, missing a ton of ball games from April 16th to the 20th. So for whatever reason, he can't stay healthy. But when he's on the field, he's a great talent. No doubt about it. So the last few games here for Buxton, April 15th in Boston, 1 for 1. Then he missed ball games April 16th to the 20th. April 21st to Kansas City, 1 for 4. April 23rd versus the White Sox, 4 for 4, a homer, 2 RBIs, 3 runs scored. April 24th versus the White Sox, 2 for 5, 2 homers, 5 RBIs. And April 26th versus Detroit, 0 for 4. So right now, while he's on fire and he's shown that he's healthy a little bit over the last 4 out of 5 games, here's Buxton. It's a perfect time to sell him high because, like I mentioned, I can't trust him. He can't stay on the field for a full season. And once again, I'm going to say he probably won't, going off his history. He could prove me wrong. But just going by track record, I just don't think Buxton's going to stay on the field for a full season. And right now, while he's playing great baseball, it's a perfect time to sell him high and trade him for either a good starter or even for 2 decent hitters I think you could get. So that's a few hitters I'd look to sell and trade here for week 3 of the fantasy baseball season.